When you hear the name Cleopatra, what images immediately spring to mind? Perhaps it's the vision of a stunning queen, draped in shimmering robes, eyes lined with kohl, reclining regally on a golden throne. Or maybe it's the femme fatale of Hollywood legend, irresistible, cunning, weaving webs of seduction around the mightiest men of Rome. Maybe you picture the tragic beauty, her life ending in the dramatic embrace of a deadly asp. These are the stories we've inherited from art, literature, and film. Yet beneath these glamorous myths lies a story far richer, more nuanced, and infinitely more human.
Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra was, in her lifetime and ever after, a figure shrouded in layers of legend and political propaganda. Her name echoes through time as the last of the pharaohs, the woman who stood at the crossroads of the ancient world. But who was she, really? Beyond the seductive stories and the villainous caricatures, what truths can we recover about the real Cleopatra? To uncover the woman behind the myth, we must journey back over 2,000 years to a city at the edge of the Mediterranean, Alexandria, the glittering jewel of Egypt and a melting pot of cultures, knowledge and power. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE, the daughter of Ptolemy XII, the ruler of Egypt, but her family, the Ptolemies, were not Egyptian by blood. Instead, they were descended from Ptolemy I Soter, a Macedonian Greek general who followed Alexander the Great into Egypt, and after Alexander's death, seized the throne for himself. For nearly 3 centuries, Cleopatra's ancestors ruled Egypt as foreign monarchs, speaking Greek, following Greek traditions, and intermarrying within their own dynasty to keep their bloodline pure. They were, in many ways, outsiders presiding over a land ancient before their time. Yet Cleopatra was different. Unlike her predecessors, she embraced the culture of the country she ruled. She was the first of her dynasty to learn the Egyptian language, reportedly mastering as many as 7 languages in total. She styled herself as the living embodiment of Isis, the powerful Egyptian goddess of motherhood and magic, and presented herself to her subjects as a native queen. This blend of Greek heritage and Egyptian identity was not mere performance. It was a shrewd political strategy, one that allowed her to bridge the divide between ruler and ruled, and to win a loyalty that had eluded so many before her. But Cleopatra's path to the throne was anything but smooth. When her father died in 51 BCE, she was just 18 years old. She was forced, by Ptolemaic tradition, to marry her much younger brother Ptolemy XIII and rule as his co-regent. It was a world where women rarely held real power, and the halls of Alexandria's royal palace were rife with intrigue. Very soon, tensions between Cleopatra and her brother's advisors erupted into open conflict. She was exiled from the city, forced to flee to the edge of Egypt's borders. For many, this would have been the end. For Cleopatra, it was the beginning of her legend. The arrival of Julius Caesar in Egypt in 48 BCE offered her an extraordinary opportunity. Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, had come to pursue his own rival, Pompey. Cleopatra, ever the strategist, saw her moment. In a story that has become the stuff of legend, she arranged to be smuggled into Caesar's private chambers, concealed within a rolled-up carpet. The gesture was bold, theatrical, and entirely calculated. Caesar, reportedly charmed by her wit, intelligence, and presence, became her ally and lover. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra reclaimed her throne, defeating her brother in a brutal civil war. She emerged as the sole ruler of Egypt, now allied with the world's greatest power. She bore Caesar a son, Ptolemy XV, who would be nicknamed Caesarion, Little Caesar. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the destinies of Rome and Egypt might be united by Cleopatra's hand. Yet the tides of Roman politics were ever shifting and treacherous. Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE left Cleopatra vulnerable once again, her alliance shattered, her son's future uncertain. The next chapter in her story unfolded in the shadow of another Roman giant, Mark Antony, famed general and member of the ruling triumvirate. Their meeting was orchestrated with all the pageantry and drama that had come to define Cleopatra's reign. She sailed to meet Antony on a gilded barge, dressed as the goddess Isis, surrounded by attendants and musicians. It was a spectacle designed to impress, and it worked. Antony, captivated by her intellect, charm and presence, formed both a political and romantic alliance with the queen. Their partnership was as strategic as it was passionate. Cleopatra bore Antony 3 children, and together they plotted to build an empire that might rival Rome itself. Yet in the eyes of Rome, especially Antony's rival, Octavian, Cleopatra was a dangerous foreign queen, a threat to Roman virtue and stability. Roman propaganda quickly seized upon this narrative, casting her as a scheming seductress who had ensnared Antony and lured him away from his duties as a Roman. The stage was set for tragedy on a scale worthy of myth. The final act came in 31 BCE, at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces triumphed over Antony and Cleopatra's combined fleet, forcing the lovers to retreat to Egypt. With their defeat inevitable and the threat of humiliation looming, both Antony and Cleopatra chose death over capture. The legend says she died by the bite of an asp, though historians now debate whether poison or another means might have been involved. She was just 39 years old. With her death, the age of the pharaohs vanished, and Egypt became a province of Rome. Of her children, only one, her daughter by Antony, would survive to adulthood, fading into obscurity. But the story did not end with Cleopatra's death. In many ways, it was just beginning. The image of Cleopatra that has persisted through the centuries owes more to her enemies than to her allies. The Roman writers who chronicled her life, Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and others, lived generations after her death, and their accounts were coloured by the political needs and prejudices of their own times. Octavian, now Augustus, had needed a justification for his war against Antony, his fellow Roman. Cleopatra became the perfect scapegoat, a foreign temptress who had corrupted and destroyed one of Rome's greatest sons. This narrative stuck. Cleopatra was immortalized as a dangerous beauty, a woman whose sexuality was her primary weapon. Yet, even in these biased accounts, glimpses of her true abilities emerge. Plutarch himself, while noting her physical features, remarked that her real allure lay in her conversation, her voice, and her intellect. She was, by all accounts, a master of languages, a skilled orator, and a patron of science, philosophy, and the arts. She presided over a court that attracted some of the brightest minds of her age. She navigated a world dominated by men, steering her kingdom through revolts, famine, and the ever-encroaching power of Rome. What did Cleopatra really look like? The coins and busts that survive from her reign show a woman with strong aquiline features, a prominent nose, a determined chin, a gaze that exudes authority rather than conventional beauty. These images were not designed to flatter, but to project strength and legitimacy. They show a queen who was above all else a ruler, conscious of her image and her place in the tumultuous politics of the ancient world. Yet, for all her achievements, Cleopatra's legacy has been shaped as much by myth as by fact. In art and popular culture, from Shakespeare's tragic heroine to Elizabeth Taylor's glamorous Hollywood portrayal, she is often reduced to a single dimension: the seductress, the lover, the destroyer of men. This caricature obscures the reality of a woman who for 21 years held power in a world hostile to female authority. A woman who spoke to her people in their own language, who positioned herself as both Greek and Egyptian, who dared to challenge the might of Rome. Over time, Cleopatra has been seen as villain and victim, cautionary tale and feminist icon.
Some see her as the woman who nearly brought Rome to its knees, others as a brilliant leader undone by forces beyond her control. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Cleopatra was not perfect. Her reign was marked by ruthless decisions and shifting alliances. She was capable of charm and cruelty, idealism and pragmatism. She was both an outsider and a national icon, a lover and a warrior, a mother and a monarch. Her story, like the woman herself, resists simple categorization. What, then, is Cleopatra's true legacy? Perhaps it is this enduring fascination, this ability to capture the imagination of generations. She was a queen who redefined what was possible for women in the ancient world, who used every tool at her disposal, intellect, language, spectacle, and yes, allure, to navigate a perilous landscape of power. She was a survivor until the very end, and even in death, she shaped the narrative that would define her for millennia. Her legend has inspired countless works of art, literature, and film. Yet, beneath the layers of myth, the real Cleopatra continues to emerge. A woman of extraordinary intelligence, ambition, and resilience. Her life reminds us that history is often written by the victors, that truth is shaped by perspective, and that the most enduring stories are those that refuse to be confined by simple explanations. So, who was Cleopatra, truly? She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, a bridge between worlds, a ruler who dared to dream beyond the constraints of her time. Her story is one of survival, reinvention, and the enduring power of myth. And perhaps, in the end, her greatest achievement is that 2,000 years after her death, the world is still captivated by her name. Was Cleopatra a hero or a villain? A victim or a mastermind? The answer, as with all great figures of history, is not so easily pinned down. She was, above all, profoundly human, complex, contradictory, and unforgettable. As we look back across the centuries, past the veils of propaganda and legend, we glimpse a woman who defied expectations, who made her own destiny, and who left an indelible mark on the world she ruled. Cleopatra's story remains a testament to the complexity of history, the power of narrative, and the enduring allure of those who dare to shape their own fate.
So next time you hear the name Cleopatra, remember, behind the myths and the movies was a real queen. Brilliant, bold, and unforgettable. Her empire may have fallen, but her legend endures as vibrant and enigmatic as ever.